On the evening of December 29th, 1972, at approximately 8:30 p.m., the corridors of John F. Kennedy International Airport echoed with a routine announcement. Eastern Airlines, Flight 401, was ready for boarding. 163 passengers, 13 crew members, all stepping aboard a glimpse of the future. The Lockheed L-101, one TriStar, a wide-body giant, nicknamed the Whisper Liner, built for luxury, engineered for precision. Everything felt perfect. The men at the helm, in command. Captain Robert Bob Loft, a veteran of the skies, with over 30,000 flight hours. Calm, precise, unshakable. The kind of pilot you trust with your life. Beside him, First Officer Bert Stockstill and Flight Engineer Donald Don Repo. Quiet, skilled, focused. A crew built on experience. A journey interrupted at 9:20 p.m. The aircraft lifted into the night sky. New York, fading behind. Miami, ahead. For 2 hours. Everything was flawless, smooth, effortless. One passenger even began writing a letter, praising the comfort of the flight. But then, at exactly 11:32 p.m., something changed. As the lights of Miami appeared in the distance, Captain Loft lowered the landing gear. But one light failed to turn on. A single green indicator, the one that confirmed the nose gear was locked. Dark. Was it a simple bulb failure, or something far worse? A fatal distraction, uncertain. The captain aborted the landing. Air traffic control instructed them to circle over the Everglades. At 2,000 feet. Below them, nothing but darkness. No city lights, no horizon, just black. The autopilot was engaged, and the crew focused entirely on the faulty light, trying to fix it, trying to understand it. But in that moment, something subtle happened, almost invisible. A slight movement, a bump against the control yoke, small, unnoticed, but enough to disengage the altitude hold. The plane was no longer maintaining its height, and in the pitch-black night, no one realized. The final moments, as Don Repo climbed down into the narrow inspection tunnel. Beneath the cockpit, the aircraft continued, its silent descent, slow, steady, unseen. No alarms, at first, no warning, until a sudden alert, altitude, too low. But by then, it was already too late. At 227 miles per hour, the left wingtip struck the swamp, and in seconds, the aircraft disintegrated. Metal tearing through water and mud, scattering across the Florida Everglades. The silence of the swamp was shattered. 99 lives, lost in the darkness. And what began as a simple light bulb failure became one of aviation's most haunting tragedies, a mystery that would linger for decades. While the wreckage of Flight 401 lay scattered across the Florida Everglades, the night was not entirely silent. Somewhere in the darkness, two men were moving through the swamp. Robert Markey and his friend, frog hunters, used to the stillness, used to the dark. Then a flash, blinding, yellow, violent. It lit up the entire swamp for just a second, and then gone. They froze because they knew that wasn't lightning. Without hesitation, they turned their airboat and raced toward the source. What they found was not just wreckage, it was chaos. Metal, torn apart, water, burning with fuel, debris, everywhere. And then, the sound, screams, human, desperate, alive. Markey grabbed his headlamp, a small beam of light against endless darkness. Step by step, through mud, through water, through broken metal, he began to see them. Survivors, trapped under seats, pinned beneath wreckage, half submerged in the black swamp water. Some were unconscious, some were calling for help, some were already gone. The air smelled of fuel, fire, could erupt at any second. They didn't stop. They couldn't. For hours, they dragged bodies, lifted debris, pulled strangers out of the swamp. Time blurred, the darkness felt endless, until finally, at dawn, the sound of helicopters cut through the sky. The Coast Guard had arrived, but by then, the damage was done. 99 lives, lost, including Captain Bob Loft and his entire crew. 77 survivors, against all odds. But the story didn't end there. The parts that remained. The official investigation was clear. Human error. A distraction over something small. A light bulb. And in a cruel twist, that very bulb was later found to be working perfectly. But for Eastern Airlines, closing the case wasn't enough. They wanted to recover what they could. From the wreckage, they salvaged parts, undamaged components, galleys, electronics, equipment, pieces of a broken aircraft, and they placed them into other planes, including one in particular, Flight 318. At first, everything seemed normal, but then the stories began. The apparitions of Flight 318 March 1973. 2 flight attendants, Ginny and Denise, working alone in the lower deck galley, a tight space, cramped, enclosed. And suddenly, the temperature dropped, a chill, unnatural. Both women, at different times, felt the same thing. A presence, not seen, but felt, heavy, watching, waiting. They were alone, they were sure of it, but it didn't feel that way. And then, things got worse. On another flight, a figure was seen, a man in a captain's uniform, sitting silently among the passengers. A flight attendant approached him, spoke to him. No response. He just stared forward, still expressionless. Something wasn't right. The pilot of that flight, Captain George, was called in. He took one look at the man and froze, his face drained of colour, because he recognized him instantly. It was Bob Loft, the captain who died in Flight 401. Before anyone could react, before a word could be said, the figure vanished, gone, as if he was never there. The silent protectors. But it didn't stop in the cabin. Maintenance crews, flight engineers, began reporting sightings. Another figure, Don Repo, seen in the hellhole, that same narrow space beneath the cockpit. Sometimes walking, sometimes standing, sometimes watching. In one chilling report, a flight engineer saw something in the reflection of an oven door. A face, Repo's face, looking straight at him. And then a warning, a fire risk, a failure about to happen. And then gone. Later, they checked, and the warning was real. Something had almost gone wrong. For 2 years, these stories spread. Quietly, crew members whispered, avoided certain aircraft, refused certain flights. Management tried to silence it. Threats, psychological evaluations, termination. Anything to stop the rumors. But there was one detail they couldn't ignore. Every single sighting, ever. And maybe some stories are never truly over, because somewhere in the silence of the skies, there are still questions without answers. Was it all just coincidence? Or did something refuse to be forgotten? A crew that stayed behind, not to haunt, but to warn. If you enjoyed this story and want more mysteries from the dark side of reality, make sure to subscribe, because the next story might be even closer to the truth than you think. Until then, stay curious, stay aware, and never ignore the small things.